Hello everyone. Friends, what if I told you there is an ecosystem on earth that is disappearing 3 times faster than our rainforests? It holds the key to our survival. Welcome back to our channel. Today in this video we are unpacking one of the most vital environmental agreements in human history, that is the Ramsar Convention on Wetlands. So before to get into what is Ramsar Convention, let's understand what exactly is a wetland and why do we care it. The wetlands are the unique ecosystem where water covers or sits near the surface of the soil, acting as a crucial transitional zone between land and water. For example, think of swamps, marshes, bogs, fens, mangroves, and floodplains. While many assume that rainforests are the ultimate biodiversity champions, certain wetlands are actually more biodiverse and productive. Yet, friends, they are disappearing faster than forest. They are often called as kidneys of the earth. We'll understand why they are called as a kidney of earth in the upcoming slides. So, some of the examples of the wetland, as I've told in the previous slide: bogs, fen, a swamp, and a marsh. Friends, not all wetlands are created equal. They fall into distinct categories. For instance, a bog or a mire is highly acidic with a pH under 7, whereas a fen is alkaline with a pH of 7 or higher. If you see a wetland dominated by trees and woody plants, that's swamp. If it's dominated by softer vegetation like grasses and reeds, it's marsh. So the wetlands are called as the kidneys of the earth. Let's understand why they're called as the kidneys of the earth. So why do we call these wetlands as kidneys of the earth? Because they act as a massive natural water filter, trapping organic toxins, heavy metals, and agriculture runoff to release pristine water downstream. They also they also act as a giant physical sponges. During heavy rain or flood, they absorb immense volume of water, shielding the nearby towns from catastrophic floods. On top of that, they serve as a crucial biological cradle, harboring over 40% of all global plant and animal species during critical breeding season. So they are called as kidneys of earth. So they act as a water filter, they act as a flood absorber, and they support huge amount of biodiversity. Okay, so now let's jump into to understand what the Ramsar Convention is, and to understand how this convention for wetlands has started, what is the history of it, will understand it. So to protect these wetlands, these lifelines, nations came together to sign Ramsar Convention, the oldest modern global environmental treaty explicitly dedicated to specific ecosystem type. It was adopted on 2nd February 1971 in the Iranian city of Ramsar on the shores of Caspian Sea, officially entering into force in 1975. Friends, today we celebrate February 2nd globally as a World Wetlands Day. Unlike generic climate accords, Ramsar Convention specifically focuses heavily on highly localized and a physical ecosystem which we call as a wetlands. So now let's understand the history of this Ramsar Convention and how this convention got originated. Friends, let's look at how it evolved. In the 1960s, a growing alarm over rapid wetland drainage for urban growth and agriculture sparked action. In 1971, a treaty was signed, launching in 1975 with 7 original parties. By the 1980s, the scope expanded from just protecting bird habitats to valuing the full ecological and economic impact of wetlands. In 1990, a specialized threat register called as Montreux Record was established. Fast forward to today, it has grown to include 172, I repeat, 172 global contracting parties protecting thousands of designated sites. So this is how the Ramsar Convention has evolved, and this is how that Ramsar Convention came into existence. So now let's understand on what principles or what dynamic pillars this Ramsar Convention works. Let's understand it. So the entire framework of the Ramsar Convention stands on three dynamic pillars. One is the wise use, list of urgency, and the third one is cooperation. The first is the principle of wise use, the heart of the treaty. This doesn't mean human activity is banned. That means it means utilizing the wetlands sustainably so that to maintain their ecological character intact. Second is the Ramsar list. Member nations commit to designating wetlands of international importance based on strict ecological and hydrological criteria, granting them protective legal frameworks. And the third pillar is the international cooperation, requiring nations to collaborate on transboundary water networks and migratory species crossing borders. So friends, the Ramsar Convention works on three dynamic pillars. One is the wise use, second is the listing of the Ramsar sites of international importance, that's listing urgency. Next is the cooperation. This is what is explained in this slide also, the three dynamic pillars of Ramsar Convention. So now let's understand why these wetlands matter, why we have to protect it, why we have to protect them. The sheer value of wetlands is mind blowing. Did you know that peatlands store twice as much carbon as all the world's forests combined? Meanwhile, coastal mangroves and salt marshes form a resilient physical buffer against devastating storms and rising sea levels. Economically, over 1 billion people rely directly on wetlands for food, livelihoods, and income. Because of all these economic services or ecosystem services, these wetlands are very, very important. They do a service of water purification, flood control, climate regulation. They are the biodiversity hotspots, food and livelihood. People depend on them, and coastal protection. So this is the reason why a convention was required to protect these wetlands. So let's understand Ramsar in numbers. So let's look at the numbers. While 172 countries protect over 254 million hectares across 2,471 designated Ramsar sites, we are still facing a crisis, friends. We have lost 35% of all wetlands globally since 1970. Since 1970. To put that into perspective, every single 10 minutes, a wetland area the size of an entire football field is lost somewhere on the earth. For every 10 minutes, it's a serious concern. Every 10 minutes, a wetland area the size of a football field is lost worldwide. Now let's understand what the matrix record and this matrix record is, the threat matrix. Excuse me. So when a Ramsar site faces extreme danger, it enters the matrix record. That means it is listed into the matrix record, the treaties international red alert system for sites experiencing negative ecological changes due to pollution or human development. Any Ramsar site, if it is facing any threats or damages because of human pressure or pollution or developmental pressure, it is put into the matrix record. Friends, you just have to remember this. Currently, two prominent Indian wetlands sit in this list. Keoladio National Park in Rajasthan due to water shortage, and Loktak Lake in Manipur. Loktak Lake in Manipur from developmental pressure. These two Ramsar site facing thrust, that's why they are listed into the matrix record. Friends, there is also other side also. There is a hope also. There is success also. India's Chilka Lake was once on this list, that is a matrix record, but was successfully restored and removed thanks to the brilliant community-driven conservation work. So with all coordination from everyone, we can recover the sites which are under threat. Example is the Chilka Lakes, friends. So moving forward, what are the threats these wetlands are facing these days? Friends, the threats are very aggressive. Drainage and land conversion for agriculture and infrastructure remains the single biggest driver of wetland loss. And in toxic agriculture runoff and plastic pollution, groundwater over extraction, overfishing, climate induced droughts, and aggressive invasive species like the water hyacinth, and you have a recipe for ecological collapse. There are many threats these wetlands are facing these days. You can see here, as I've said, drainage and land conversion became the biggest one. Water extraction, over extraction, climate change, pollution, over exploitation, and invasive species. So, friends, we have seen now what are the wetlands, and to protect these wetlands, what convention we have brought, that's Ramsar Convention, what threats it's facing, and why these wetlands matter, what is the importance of it. Now, let's understand few notable Ramsar sites around the world. So, despite the threats, the Ramsar network protects some of the most some of the most spectacular places on our planet. This includes the Sundarbans. This includes the Sundarbans in India and Bangladesh, the world's largest mangrove forest, and a Bengal tiger's stronghold. The Okavango Delta in Botswana, the world's largest inland delta, and the Pantanal, Brazil's Pantanal, the largest tropical wetland on earth, teeming with jaguars and capybaras, and the Chilka Lake, which I've said in the previous slide. It's Asia's largest coastal lagoon. It is there in India. So now let's understand Ramsar Convention, the achievement of India. Friends, India ratified this Ramsar Convention in 1981. India ratified this Ramsar Convention in 1981 and has become a global leader in wetland conservation. India has a India has hit a historic milestone, exactly 100 designated Ramsar sites, placing it third globally for the most sites protected. The historic 100 site, that is the Jai Prakash Narayan Bird Sanctuary, also known as the Sur Tal in Bhalia, Uttar Pradesh, was officially designated on June 5, 2026, creating a sanctuary for countless migratory birds. Friends, you can see we have hit a milestone of 100 Ramsar sites, third highest in your entire world. We have entered the Ramsar Convention, we have ratified in 1981, and we have come a long way by hitting a milestone of 100 Ramsar sites. The key Indian Ramsar sites in India are Chilka Lake in Odisha, Ular Lake in Jammu and Kashmir, Sundarbans in West Bengal, Point Kalimar in Tamil Nadu, Kieladio National Park in Rajasthan, Loktak Lake in Manipur, Sambarsar Lake in Rajasthan, Bhitarkanika Mangroves in Odisha. You remember, as I already earlier said, the Jaiprakash Narayan Bird Sanctuary in Uttar Pradesh has become the 100th Ramsar site. It's also called as Surat Tal in Bhalia, that is Uttar Pradesh. So let's understand achievements, challenges, and relevance today. What is the relevance of this Ramsar Convention today too? Where do we stand today? Ramsar has successfully raised global awareness and fostered international diplomacy. However, implementation gaps and climate change continue to challenge us. Ultimately, the convention remains intensely relevant today, linking directly to global biodiversity goals and climate action through blue carbon ecosystem that capture massive amounts of carbon. So there are achievements, there is a relevance to it, and what are challenges we are facing. Friends, the key takeaway from this Ramsar Convention on Wetlands is, remember these friends, the key takeaway is that Ramsar is the only global treaty dedicated to specific ecosystem type, that is wetlands. Wise use means sustainably, not a total ban. We have to use it, we have to use the wetland, but sustainably. These ecosystems provide a staggering $47 trillion a year in natural services. Yet we are losing them rapidly. Protecting our wetlands means protecting our future. Friends, this Ramsar Convention, which came into existence in 1971, is the first and only global treaty focused on, as I've said earlier, on a specific ecosystem type, that's wetlands. So these are the main key takeaway which we have to consider. And also, as I've said earlier, India has recently hit a milestone mark of 100th Ramsar site, which is Jai Prakash Narayan Bird Sanctuary in Uttar Pradesh. And 172 countries have ratified this Ramsar Convention. So, friends, if you learned something new today, hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives into our planet's ecology, and leave a comment below. Have you ever visited a Ramsar site near to you? Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.